All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to part 2, talking about AEW Revolution. As we finished up talking about FTR versus Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli, we move on to the AEW Women's World Championship. We got Toni Storm defending her title against Deonna Purrazzo.
Timeless Toni Storm versus the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo.
Yeah, and
friends, Jack. They've known each other for a long time, and I really like how this match built on that.
Yeah, they've known each other for quite some time. I definitely liked a lot of the build to this one. I was definitely one that was calling for Deonna to sign with AEW. I did like a whole sort of video talking about basically like a lot of the stuff that AEW had to address with their women's division in this new year, And, one of the things I had made like a segment in that video was saying that, Tony Khan has to come and open his checkbook. He does it a lot for all these different, male signings. It's time to start doing that for a lot of the female ones, especially given how much great talent is out there on the free agent market, And Deonna was one of them. I was saying that, open that checkbook, go out and get her. She's going to really help out your division. She did really well in the build up to this, but at the same time, I mentioned in part 1 talking about like wanting to see or like leaving this show with a lot of sort of not questions, but like thoughts about like the outcomes and the future to hold. We've seen a lot of women get signed to AEW, have a hot start, get a title match, as a part of like one of their first feuds, and then go on to do less afterwards, or kind of fall into the background afterwards. So that's why even with this one, despite how much I liked the build to it, I was a bit weary of what would be the result and what is going to be the outcome, because we still, don't know. We have to see what follows in the weeks to come. But that was sort of my thinking going into this one, where I was just like, let's see how this goes, and hopefully it's telling of the future,
I agree. Love Toni Storm's current character. Love her commitment to it, right? And like you were saying, the story is their past, how they've known each other growing up in the business. But Toni Storm, refusing all of that, saying, she's trying to leave her past behind her, right? Like, this is a completely different person. And I saw somebody on YouTube say, Deonna Purrazzo says, I want the old Toni Storm. And it's an interesting delivery to that promise in this match and in the entrances. And I didn't consider that till this person goes, she wanted the old Toni Storm, and that's what she got.
Yeah, so I definitely saw a lot of people going into this match feeling that same way, where they were like, I guess some people aren't as big a fan, at least with her in-ring work so far, as timeless Toni Storm, especially people that know Toni Storm's previous work. They know, at least in-ring wise, she could do a lot better. They're glad that she's found this intriguing character, but a lot of people have kind of felt let down a bit by her, her in-ring work with this character and a lot of the shenanigans that come with it. But Deonna makes her entrance. Amazing gear. I really love the gear that she had for this one. And then Toni comes to make her entrance, and her old AEW theme starts playing, and everyone thinks, she took I Want the Old Toni Storm seriously. She comes out, and everyone's looking, and everyone's like, oh, it's Toni Storm. Even I'm looking, I'm like, oh, it's Toni Storm. No, at no point am I looking and am I noticing that's not Toni Storm.
That's Mariah May, Toni Storm's #1 fan, up-and-coming wrestler, and cosplaying as backwards cap, red and black leather, Toni Storm.
Yeah, completely.
A very convincing cosplay.
Yeah, caught everyone off guard. I didn't even notice it until commentary finally made it known. I was like, oh, snap. I did not realize that wasn't her. But,
that's crazy, right?
Yeah, but Toni comes out in her usual, black and white. Comes out, makes her appearance, and the match gets underway. Sir, what'd you think about this one?
So, like you were saying, people feeling, a little disappointed in her in-ring performance since adopting this character, since it seems her matches seem to skew more theatrics, the nonsense, right? Luther. this match felt like a change of pace because Deonna Purrazzo is really kind of taking her to task, kind of doing that more catch can, but that more technical wrestling that, she's like drawing out of Toni Storm. And it's funny because I can't remember, I think I've said this before, but like, I don't remember the last Deonna Purrazzo match I liked. And I've always wondered, like, is it because she's in there with somebody who isn't up to her level? And I think this is a case where she was, because I felt like, oh, I think things are clicking better. And, I feel like I'm enjoying this match more than I've enjoyed her matches like an Impact.
Yeah, I definitely felt that same way. And especially because, she has that technical style. That it kind of worked better. At times, Toni was doing her typical, like, timeless antics. So, like, it was interesting to see, like, that combatants of, like, Deonna trying to will that old, like, Toni Storm out of her by doing this more technical style at times, and really trying to get her to fight back at times.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it was pretty decent in my eyes. It wasn't necessarily the best match on the card, but I was still happy with Deonna's performance of it all. Toni gets the victory. Obviously, she gets the victory after Mariah May clocks Deonna with. Wait, does she clock her with the title? I forget. I know I think there's a point where she tries to, and Deonna knocks her off the ring apron, and that's when she turns around and gets hit with the pile driver by Toni.
Yeah. That must be it. I'll tell you what, Jack, this is one of those matches where I'm 50% in it, 50% on my laptop because it's Sunday and I'm getting ready for Monday.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning at the start of this, so after this, I made the comment to myself of saying that, like I said, I'm glad Deonna got this opportunity. I'm glad she got to showcase herself. Wanted maybe a bit better, but at the same time, it's all about what the future holds. She's come in as a real big highlighted signing. What's to follow? Like
I heard somebody
compare this momentum.
I heard somebody compare Toni Storm in her recent reign to Britt Baker. Britt Baker was a very strong character, a strong wrestler, swatting challengers left and right to the point where they no longer had a division, right?
Yeah.
You just worry that, Toni Storm's going to go through these challengers as they come. And then I wonder, is it Mariah May? Does she get built up to finally topple Toni Storm from within?
That could be an interesting story. I mean, it especially seems they're going that route with Mariah May's whole character.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. I think back to her time in Stardom, and Mariah May obviously did very well. But I just don't know if the world title is in her scenes just yet,
Who do you pick to be her next challenger if you had the pen or the pencil?
See, it's tough because of the fact that again, you have to sort of dance around this timeless character, because I could pick certain people like Chris Statlander, but at the same time, I think in my head, I'm like, how is Chris Statlander going to play off of this character, How is it going to work out? It could be an interesting story of, like, Chris Statlander's power being real sort of threatening to Toni, kind of like in the same way that Deonna's technical prowess was, like, very threatening to Toni, to the point where, like, she was having to pull out certain things. So it could be something similar, but at the same time, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know if that would play out to their strengths. How you mentioned about, like, Deonna. It's like, I don't know if Chris Statlander's strengths would best be highlighted through, a timeless Toni Storm match. Looking at some of the other names.
I know who it has to be. Boston with $2 in the name. It's Mercedes Moné.
That could be an interesting one, but
and she should $1 Million Man it and buy it from Toni Storm. Say she's going to make the next big talkie picture with her or something, and she just plays into it.
That would actually be pretty interesting.
Or what if like somebody wrote a script and she's filming a movie where the scene calls for her to relinquish the title, and it counts.
Oh man, another name that's recently been like racking up wins because they're on the quest is Thunder Rosa's trying to get her title back, but again, kind of similar to the Chris Statlander thing, where I'm just like, how would it play off? You know, especially because like Thunder Rosa's gonna bring up, hey, I never lost my title. You technically won it after me. I want my shot to get it back. And Tony Storm's just going to look at her and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they have a lot of interesting options. Like you said, Mercedes Moné, but I know a lot of AEW fans aren't going to like this, but I don't necessarily want Mercedes Moné to win the title right off the bat. I know a lot of people would say that's not capitalizing on her momentum and popularity that's gonna like happen when she debuts, you know, in that Boston event. But I mean, CM Punk debuted and he didn't win the title for a couple months, you know. Like I could give some time in between Mercedes winning it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I know they're likely gonna go that route, and I guess it'll just be interesting to see how they do a feud and how they play up the story with her and Tony Storm.
Agreed.
Moving on to our next match, you went from, you know, this sort of slower paced, if you want to say, match to full throttle, you know, just completely all energy. Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita.
You full throttle, and then you pull the throttle out.
Yeah, this was, you know, going back to your analogy, this is a car speeding down the highway and realizing, oh snap, the brake doesn't work.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so as you mentioned...
And by the way, Jack, just to preface this match, which I was looking forward to the absolute most, I fall asleep during this one.
Oh, wow.
I catch the beginning, I catch the end. There's probably some spots in the middle you're going to have to help me out with.
I don't blame you because I even made a comment to one of my friends during this. I said, my only issue with these AEW shows is I start hitting a wall at some point and I start getting tired. I was laying down watching this match and I came dangerously close, but I was like, no, I got to stay awake.
Yeah, this is one I'm going to definitely rewatch to enjoy to its fullest.
Yeah, but so we have Will Ospreay making his in-ring debut as a full-time member of the AEW roster, challenging fellow Don Callis member Konosuke Takeshita. And that line really hurts me because I was hoping when Will Ospreay came in, he wouldn't be a part of the Don Callis family. But then I remembered Forbidden Door last year, and I was like, oh yeah, that was part of the story that made me like the Wrestle Kingdom match more than the Forbidden Door match, was Don Callis' involvement.
To his credit, even though Don Callis has now joined the commentary table, I think his commentary is mostly unbiased and he stays completely out of the match, which helps a lot.
Yeah, it helps quite a lot. This match was pretty great, you know, was full of physical spots, full of athletic spots, you know. There was just a lot to this match, you know. So much so that, like, it's hard for me to, like, recount a lot because it was just so much at times, you know, like, so much just back and forth, all speed, like I said.
Mm-hmm. It was, I think, you know, I haven't seen a lot of Konosuke Takeshita matches, but this definitely felt like a Will Ospreay match, if ever there was one, right?
Yeah. I think, you know, one of the spots to highlight is, of course, when Takeshita hit that brain buster on the top rope, you know, and later on in the press conference, you would see just the nasty bruise that left on Ospreay's lower back.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting to do that. It looked great. It looked painful. We seen that not but 2 matches removed from that Orange Cassidy top rope spot.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think of it. And I couldn't help but think somebody in the back should be really kind of coordinating with these guys that, you know, but hey, Greensboro loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. Another spot was when Takeshita catches Osprey for like that driver into the wheelbarrow suplex spot. That I always really enjoy from Takeshita. But my spot of the night that I just absolutely loved was when Osprey goes for the Os Cutter, and Takeshita catches him and turns it into a blue thunder bomb.
Ooh, yeah.
That one was real great. I really loved that. A lot of people online definitely got upset at the sort of spot where the two men just kind of, did the whole fighting spirit adrenaline spot where they just got up after one. Takeshita kicks out at one, and they do a couple moves going back and forth. Just pure adrenaline. The one thing I like about Ospreay's is that like elbow strike that he does. Especially because like a lot of times the way he moves and like the speed he moves at, it just makes it look even more brutal. When he goes in for that elbow strike, real good.
The hidden blade.
Yeah, and I do have to say at times it felt like they maybe brought out too much at times. Like Ospreay hit the Tiger Driver again, and I don't remember if it finished the match, but I saw him hit it, and I was just like, okay, they're pulling out everything, which is like good for the competitiveness of this match, but I can't help but think at times like maybe save some stuff.
Yeah, this was the singles match equivalent of that FTR tag match for me, Just like that, chill, dudes.
Yeah, they definitely brought out a lot in this match. But
what's funny? I don't know if we've ever brought it up, but like that fighting spirit no sell. Like I don't know if somebody said it on a podcast or a YouTube video, or if I just noticed. Like I like it. It's great because the sell only comes later. Like it's not that they don't. It just after like Will Ospreay's German suplex stands up, growls. They do a thing, they're both down. And that's that both down part where you're like, oh, I guess it's feasible that you're running on something, and like you're going to throw it yourself into something and you're going to just gas out like you and I did in the middle of this pay-per-view, in the middle of this 4-hour pay-per-view.
Yeah. Oh, man. But pretty great match from these two. Obviously going to be a match of the year contender for a lot of people. And quite a debut as a full-time member of the AEW roster for Ospreay. After a match, the Don Callis family is pretty much celebrating. We see Kyle Fletcher come out, sort of have a little stare down with Ospreay before the two of them embrace, obviously having spent their previous time together in New Japan as a part of the United Empire faction. And it's announced that the two of them will be going at it on Dynamite. And that was solely part of the reason why I didn't want Ospreay coming back and, immediately partnering back up with Don Callis. Because I just wanted to see how is it going to play out that Kyle Fletcher joined up with Don Callis. And I wanted to see how Mark Davis and Will Ospreay would react to that. Because Mark Davis is still out. We don't know if he's going to join the Don Callis family. Again, this could be all setting up for a storyline where Ospreay leaves the Don Callis family and takes back Kyle Fletcher with him, and then Mark Davis returns and they form their own sort of version of United Empire here in AEW. But
like a Jay White created the Bullet Club,
yeah,
outside of the Bullet Club.
Yeah, especially because back when Ospreay was still with New Japan, I remember there was a tweet where AEW had put out a tweet saying happy birthday to Kyle Fletcher, and they put green because United Empire, and he called them out for using green, and I think he told them to use red, and someone was like, but green is your United Empire color, and he replied back saying Don says the family comes first, and that's what made me want to see Ospreay kind of like challenge him on that, putting that before. But then again, it could be a thing of like maybe Ospreay wants to leave United Empire as a New Japan thing,
Kyle Fletcher is, I think, an example of a guy who became more boring when he joined the Don Callis family, So here's hoping that, either he joins Will or, maybe a feud with Will will make him a little more palatable or interesting. Even if it's like that Invasion Alliance. Remember the Alliance when all of those WWE guys defected, right?
Yeah.
like just like drinking the Kool-Aid mentality about like switching sides and siding with the likes of a Don Callis, believing his hype that he's going to do things for their career. How's that going, Sammy Guevara?
Yeah, I just want to see more out of a lot of the talent that's in the Don Callis family, because they're a talented bunch that definitely need a lot more going for them.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Mark Davis could have been in that Meat Madness thing.
Yeah, true. Might be injured as well. I don't know what's up with him. More than likely injured. I just can't wait for his return, because hopefully Aussie Open reunites and we get more involvement in the tag team, because as you mentioned in the first one, they could use quite a lot, and as we'll see at the end of the night, we're going to see a lot of that. But moving on to our penultimate match of the night, we have the triple threat for the AEW World Championship. Samoa Joe defending the title against Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland.
I'm awake, Jack. I've woken up. I'm all in this match.
Yeah, same. I told you about it too, that I was just super interested in this story and how they were going to play it up and sort of work with this, because Hangman's been essentially going crazy these past couple of weeks because of Swerve. Swerve's getting super over with the fans to the point where people aren't even really treating him as a heel. He's not really doing much heel stuff. I mean, we saw him tell what's his name, Prince Nana, not to get involved in, I think it was the third match with Hangman, when they went one-on-one to determine who was going to challenge Joe at Revolution.
Yeah.
So he's been acting more sort of face-ish. And Joe, well, people are wondering, is he going to be a sort of like transitional champion? This match was going to be very telling of that.
Yeah.
What'd you think of this one, sir?
I was into the dynamic going into it, right? Joe, the fighting champion, Swerve, we talked about in the Elimination Chamber match pay-per-view episode, just like, how heelish is Swerve, right? He wants to be the first African-American AEW champion. He fights, he has cool moves, he has cool music, he's a cool guy, right? And one thing that I took for granted that this hype video before the match showed me is that Hangman, like you said, going crazy, seems almost more interested in making sure Swerve doesn't win than him winning himself, Like, he just seems so hot and bothered at the idea of Swerve being champion. And Swerve, being a guy who's, becoming more noble, is still going to own the fact that he broke into that guy's house. He's like, hey, don't test me. I broke into his house. And he says it like, it's a part of his past. But, like, it really adds fuel to the fire that is Hangman's, like, strong desire to make sure that this guy isn't my champion.
Yeah. And we see him go to all those lengths in this match where he's pulling referees out. He's fighting the referees, throughout the match.
Yeah, fighting means that they're fighting back. He is beating up these referees when they're close to a 3 count on for Swerve.
Yeah, and I like that commentary starts making note of, like, there's a point where he could win the match. He's pinning Swerve, and no one's there to count, and they're like, "That's your fault, man. You're the one that letting yourself get unhinged."
We're jumping around, but how about, so he hits the house call kick on Joe, and he can pin Joe, but he's not going to pin Joe because he also has his hang-ups about Hangman, and he's like, no, wouldn't it be better if I can pin Hangman and win this match pinning him? And, like, the commentary are like, go for the champ. Go for the guy who's down. They're both down. What you waiting for? And he waited too long. Yeah. Hubris was his downfall.
Yeah, and that's what I really liked, was that the two of them were getting in the way of each other, but at times it did leave Joe out, for dry, because it felt like he wasn't the main focus a lot of times. But then that sort of plays into Joe's character as, like, not only is he the fighting champ, but a lot of times, like, he's an opportunist, like we saw that's how he ended up winning the title. He paired himself up with MJF, to be able to gain the ability to challenge MJF.
Yes.
So we saw a lot of that there. And then, of course, we get like the high spots, and then we get the finish where first off, I mentioned Swerve acting more face-ish. He refuses to use Prince Nana's crown in this match, kind of showing that. But then, of course, Hangman gets caught in the submission by Samoa Joe and ends up tapping out.
And golly, the camera shot on Swerve's face reacting to he lost this match, he didn't lose this match, Hangman lost this match, and the commentary are adding on to it saying, do you think he tapped out because he was choking? Or do you think that there's even a chance that Hangman Adam Page tapped out so that Swerve couldn't win?
Joe.
Ah! Is that for Joe Castillo or Samoa Joe?
But yeah, I definitely like that finish. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but like to me, it was like that's what they were building towards this entire time with Hangman. Was just he wants to absolutely he wants the worst for Swerve, and rightfully so. Like I've been mentioning all this time, this man has all the right to act the way he has because I mean, like I said, Swerve's been making his life a living hell. He literally broke into his home, and it's sort of a Hangman calling out the audience in a way, kind of like, Bret Hart back in the Stone Cold feud, like calling out the audience for cheering this guy when, he's done nothing but be a bad guy, And it's funny because we're sort of seeing something similar in WWE where Bayley, we talked about them sort of rushing that storyline. Well, Dakota Kai just turns on Bayley this past episode of SmackDown, and people were like, dang, why isn't no one coming out to help her? And people were explaining, WWE recently has been doing a lot of these stories where someone turns face after being heel for so long, sometimes being heel just even a couple months ago, and they're sort of portraying the consequences of that where, hey, just because you turned face recently and you're getting the crowd behind you, doesn't mean all of us in the back forgot about everything you did, and it's the same.
I agree, and we've seen that also with Jey Uso, right?
Yeah,
Jey Uso turn on the bloodline, wants to start over on Raw, and everyone's like, nah, you cost me the title against your cousin or brother or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like the same thing here where Hangman's like, why is everyone so quick to forget all the evil this man did? He bloodied Nick Wayne. He broke into my house and talked to my child. It's like, how are we letting this all pass by because his manager does a funny dance,
Hey, listen, I like that funny dance, and I like the house call and the double stomp, and he's going to win that championship.
Yeah, I'm excited for when he wins that championship, too. And I'm excited to see what comes of it. Hopefully not whatever these fans have in mind. I don't know if we said it on one of the episodes, but I mentioned to you that so many people, after years of, praising AEW for the fact that, they have longer world title reigns and, it goes, it takes a while to go from someone to someone, they're like, well, Swerve needs to win the title, and then he needs to drop it to Will Ospreay at All In, and then Ospreay needs to drop it to this person who drops it to this person. It's like, you want 5 champions in the span of a year?
Even better, Jack, I can't, I'm over people fantasy booking that All-In show. They want so much to happen at that All-In show. They want that All-In show to be the most fan-servicey show ever in the history of ever.
Yeah, I saw people saying that Jamie Hayter should return and face Mercedes Moné for the title. I saw them saying Will Ospreay needs to face... It's funny. People have 5 different matches for Ospreay. They're like, well, Ospreay could face Swerve for the title, or he could face Omega in part 3 or 4, I think. I don't know what it is at that point. They were like, he could face Danielson. We could do Okada versus Omega 5 or 6. I forget which one they're on. They're doing all these books, and I'm just like, can we get to the show first where we see who's actually available and what are the stories at that time first? Because if Swerve's champion by then, depending on when he wins it, he shouldn't be losing it so soon.
I agree. How many minutes we got, Jack?
We have about 15, I believe.
15. You know what? The biggest joke of a fan booking that I've heard is that they thought Sting should end his career at All in Wembley. How could the man who made his name here in the States and anywhere else but Greensboro, North Carolina?
Yeah, this was the perfect place. And using that to transition into our main event, the Tornado Tag Match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Sting's final match. Darby Allin and Sting facing off against the Young Bucks, facing off against the AEW EVPs Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. Darby and Sting at this point are undefeated as a tag team. Sting is undefeated in his run in AEW so far. Will he lose? Will he lose the titles? Will the Young Bucks, as the heels that they are, get this win?
We'll see. On his way out, is he going to take the L? I think a lot of people seeing the writing on the wall thought, don't let it be the Bucks. Don't leave putting over the Bucks, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I love how try hard they are. They're like, we're going to be obnoxious. You have to call us Matthew and Nicholas because that's a change of character. Jack, they're obnoxious. They didn't need to do nothing but be themselves. But they're like, look at us put on mustaches and fake business voices, and you got to call us by our full God-given name. And you're like, bro, you didn't have to do this much.
Oh, man.
All you had to do was book yourself in Sting's last match.
Yeah, and so going into this, I had told you about it after, recording last week. But so I was watching this show all on my own. But when it came to Sting's match, I told my dad, here's your birthday gift. I'm forcing you to sit down and watch this. This is Sting's final match. And he had that same sort of sentiment where he was like, don't let Sting lose to these guys, Don't let Sting lose on his way out. And I was like, I don't know. We know the way these wrestlers are. They like to go out on their backs. They like to put someone over before they leave, So I was fully expecting it. But so the Young Bucks come out with their entrance. And then Darby Allin comes out. And we get Sting coming out. We get Surfer Sting popping out. And everyone thinks, oh, Sting brought out an old classic look. It makes sense. He's brought back a couple of his old looks until, just like the Mariah May entrance, everyone sort of looks and realizes, wait, is that Sting? And then that's when we get Wolfpack Sting coming out. And that's when you realize, oh, snap, those are his sons.
I did not know they were his sons until commentary told me. I thought these were two, villains? Wrestlers in the area who dress like Sting. Because I'm like, that's a very unconvincing Wolfpack Sting. It's his kids. The Surfer one looks dead on like him.
Yeah. And then finally Sting comes out to his WCW Metallica theme, am I correct?
Seek and Destroy.
Yeah. He comes out and it's full chaos from the start because they immediately go after the Young Bucks, and even Sting's sons get a spot in this match.
They do the Stinger Splash and, show me you're not a wrestler without telling me you're a wrestler. And, I don't know, maybe they jump too early or they want to go soft on him. I mean, they kind of whiff it. But don't you fret, because Sting's behind him to give him the real thing.
Yeah. And then from there, it's just all chaos. And but of course, before I have to mention, I don't know how I blew by it. Do you get that vignette beforehand of Sting? The one where he's sitting in the empty movie theater. You see all the sort of clips, most notably clips from WCW missing because no permission was given.
Yeah.
But, you get that final sort of clip and I just love that clip where it's Sting very emotional, sort of realizing he's showtime for one final time.
I get the gravitas of this night. Maybe it's because I don't believe him, Terry Funk. But I wasn't as tear jerky as I am. And I am easy, Jack, to evoke a tear, This one, I never felt it. I love Sting. And goodness, this is a good match. This was a solid outing for the Stinger.
Yeah, and I think maybe the reason why so many, weren't so emotional is because of how crazy the match was. There wasn't, any sort of, theatrics of, how we see with other sort of retirement matches where it's oh, he's old and broken down, and,
That's true. There's none of that. We get OP Sting. We get undefeated, no selling Sting. And it's It never stops being incredible, Jack. Like it's so good.
Yeah,
It defies all logic, but we want it to.
yeah, and it was funny because just like they did with SCU, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I can't wait to see the Young Bucks recreate the Shawn Michaels Ric Flair spot." And then
Yes,
you see him do it by going, "I'm not sorry, I hate you."
I love that part. I'm like, you know what? That was designed to be funny, and it was funny. They do a lot of things that were designed to be funny, but are not. That was good. That was so good.
Yeah, Steamboat and Flair were obviously at ringside. You see Steamboat get involved before, I believe he got super kicked, or no, I think he got hit with a chair.
Yeah, because Nicholas Jackson is trying to get a belt because he's going to bring a belt in this. There have been chairs and glass panes and tables, by the way, but the belt, I can't let it happen. So Ricky Steamboat, no, it takes it away from him before he gets beat up. And all the meanwhile, Flair is entering the ring. Sting's down. They're coming after Flair, and Sting does the old, no, don't hit him. It's over. Don't do this.
Yeah, and then they double super kick Flair after making it look like they weren't going to do it. And the funniest image I saw was someone took a screenshot of Flair down in the corner after that, and someone used like a photo editor to grab the color of Ric Flair's face afterwards, and someone was like, "No man should be this color," and it was like this like darkish pinkish purple.
Probably the same color he was sporting on his last match, that one pay-per-view, with Andrade.
Yeah.
The one where he died twice.
Yeah, and then obviously, we've been jumping around, but at the start, you see the Sting bring out glass panes, one of which he tries to hit the Young Bucks, misses, and just looks at the glass pane and starts smacking it until it shatters with his bat.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I swing for a Young Buck, I miss the Young Buck, I hit the glass. He swung for a Young Buck, he missed the Young Buck, he hit the glass, but not at an angle or with a force that would have broken, so he just goes, ah!
And then you see them setting up a ladder. You see Darby setting up chairs. You see him put that glass pane there, and and my dad wasn't putting it together at first, but the first thing that popped in my head was that spot against Jeff Hardy back in 2022, I think it was, for the Owen Hart tournament. I immediately thought of that, and so I immediately said, "Oh, don't tell me he's gonna do it." And my dad started putting two and two together, and we after it happened, we immediately called Marco over to go watch it, but. That spot, man. Darby Allin gets up on the ladder, ready to dive onto. I can't tell which Young Buck. I'm always bad with telling the Young Bucks apart. But as he goes for the dive, the other Young Buck pulls the other one out the way from the top of a ladder, goes crashing through the glass. And the craziest part to me is the fact that he turns over. And usually when these blood spot happens, it takes a bit of time for the blood to start coming out. Like with Dax, it took a bit to sort of notice it, This, it's like the camera's zoomed out, so you're just looking, you're like, oh, well, it doesn't look that bad. And as they zoom in, that's when you just start seeing all the red dots start popping up on his arms and back, and you're just like, oh my goodness.
Jack, it wasn't until the replay I realized he was jumping at somebody. I thought he jumped into that, like just the empty end of the pool,
Yeah. Oh, man. That is one of the craziest spots I've ever seen. I literally saw someone before the show say Darby Allin might try and die for Sting's last match. Like, he might do something insane for Sting's last match, and he goes out and does that.
That spot's so dangerous. I thought glass was going to pop out into the audience,
Yeah. Man, that was insane. Obviously, there was also the spot where Sting and Darby both got suplexed off the stage and through tables.
Yes.
And that took out Sting for quite some time before he came back. The one thing I love about that Darby spot is that he's out of it for the rest of the match to the point where it's almost a handicap match,
It is. So it's up to Sting to fight. I was surprised too when his sons left. I go, hey, tornado tag. Finish the job.
Yeah. Then you get the spot where they powerbomb Sting off the ladder through a table, and then there's the spot where they throw him through the glass that's set up in the ring only for Sting to get back up and, no sell it like always and start going after him. And then
I'll bring it up now. Somebody on Instagram celebrating the life and career of Sting just mentioned, you really stop and think about all the dirty that WCW did to him and his character, and then all the dirty that TNA did to his character, and then all the dirty that WWE did to his character. And like, if you applaud AEW for anything, just this presentation of Sting, this consistent presentation of Sting, the one that was thrown through that glass pane and got up and stared at both them bucks in the face and said, "I'm gonna hurt you." Like, it was always possible, and they got it done here.
I think the people...
Deadlock, the podcast, we've shouted out before. James Darnell says something incredible. He goes, Sting was notorious for not politicking, and he should have. He definitely should have talked himself out of some of the angles and matches that he was put through, but he was a consummate professional. Now here, though, we go cash in all them chips, and we're not selling nothing.
I think they were robbed. The match was good and all, but Darby Allin to get 12 stitches robbed the whole place. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I call cap on is the fact that Darby only needed 12 stitches after all that.
That's very funny. You're both very funny.
But yeah, I absolutely love the way Sting was in this match. And I mentioned, Darby's down for pretty much all of it. The two things I love is I saw people trying to bring up, how come Sting's able to go through the glass and get up much earlier than Darby? And it's like, well, one, Sting didn't fall off no 15, 20-foot ladder diving on through and going through not only glass but steel chair setup. But two, it's Sting. He doesn't follow logic. He doesn't need your reasoning behind it,
Where's Tony Schiavone? It's Sting!
Yeah, and the one thing I love is that, like I said, Darby's down for pretty much all that match. And when he finally does come back, all he has the strength to do is push one of the Young Bucks off through a table and hit a coffin drop on the other one. And after he hits that coffin drop, he's pretty much still struggling to even do anything. It's up to Sting to finish this match.
With a Scorpion Deathlock to get the tap and the surprise win to retain the AEW Tag Team Championships and leave a winner.
Yeah, leaves undefeated in his time in AEW. Leaves on top. You hear the rumors that he had to be talked into it, which again goes to showing that whole politicking thing of he was willing to do whatever is best for his business, and it took a lot of convincing in the end for them to be like, no, you're winning, and you're not. We're not doing the usual going out on your back. You're going out on top. And just an absolutely crazy end to it all. And of course, Sting goes. They get him the mic. He starts talking, and then of course, you hear him go, "Oh, hold on, I'm being counted down." And then the show ends, and us at home don't get to hear his speech.
How many minutes do we have on this podcast episode, Jack?
153.
Are we going to do to Sting what Triller did to Sting and cut him short?
I think we might. I don't know. We have about 140 left.
Oh, Jack, what did you think of the show overall?
One of my favorites. I would definitely say to any fan out there, if you haven't tuned into AEW, or you're always weary about which pay-per-views to buy, obviously it's all based on your enjoyment and interest in the matches on the card. But Revolution's as consistent as it comes. It's always been one of their top shows year in and year out. I think it's the one that I would probably go out and say I don't think they've had a bad Revolution. They've had a couple of bad all-outs.
For sure.
They've had a couple
Full
of bad
gears.
double or nothing.
Yeah, inconsequential, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to check out that Will Ospreay match that I slept through, but I was really into Sting, the championship match, even the TNT title. I was thoroughly enjoyed it. I was thoroughly entertained as well.
Yeah. And the one thing we'll leave off with is afterwards, Sting and Darby vacate the titles. We will now be looking at a tag title tournament to decide
Your favorite.
the champions. Yeah, going to be real interesting to see. But with that being said, thank you all for joining for these 2 episodes. I've been Jack, joined by my guest,
Mr. Solis.
Thank you all for joining for these 2 episodes, and we'll catch you on the next one.